Hobie, Mom was right. You've changed.
Well, I don't even know where to start. Good morning, afternoon, evening or night to everyone. I put my hand on my heart. I was definitely not expecting this. Immediately I say I'm aware that Amazon has departed from the canon. Since the first series, I myself partly defended the series. My reflections, some questions, will only be on the script that takes place in the series. I didn't agree with other people that Halbrand would be Sauron. I was sure that Halbrand's character would play as the final factor for Celebrimbor before the main antagonist of the series, Sauron, appeared in the finale under the guise of Anatar. According to the script, even a human blacksmith is better than Fëanor's grandson, Celebrimbor. Moreover, we were told about Fëanora during the dialogue between Celebrimbor and Elrond, and it would be great to reveal his backstory, by the way. And in the 8th episode, they even showed us and partly hinted at the pseudo-Silmarillions, and Halbrand will be the very last straw that will help Sauron when he takes on the appearance of Anatar, to play on Celebrimbor's desire to surpass his grandfather, which he will not be able to do in the end. And the 8th episode will end on how Galadriel, Halbrand, Elrond and Gil-galad face a new character who will arrive in Aragorn and declare himself as the messenger of the Valar. That in the final episode we will be intrigued, as in the next we will be shown a storyline where the elves of Aragorn are obsessed with the thought of the extinction of the world. They will accept the knowledge and lessons of Anatar. In the original, this process took a century, but in the series, let it be several years between the first and second season. But we didn't even see that. And to show how the blacksmiths Gwaith and Midran surpassed their previous creations, and how they came up with the idea to create rings of power under the influence of Anatar. To show that Celebrimbor still didn't succumb to the seduction of Anatar, and it was he who recognized the lies and deceit and the real guise of Anatar, that he is Sauron. It was he who in secret from everyone forged the 3 rings of the elves, using the knowledge of his enemy, and gave 1 to Galadriel and 2 to Gil-galad in an attempt to save them from Sauron. All these would lead to large-scale events. It would be great to show the fall of the blacksmiths Gwaith and Midran at the end of the second season, the war between the elves and Sauron, who by that time had already redeemed a single ring of power, the fall of Aragorn, the battle with the armies of Elrond and Celebrimbor, and the death of the latter. All this, I mean, is that before the appearance and forging of the rings themselves, one could still really come up with so many things and wrap up cool stories, write and film so many subtle psychological episodes. It's just that such a significant event as the creation of Rings of Power, they fitted in 1 episode, and moreover it was only 10 minutes in a series called Rings of Power. To show how Gil-galad refused to let Anatar to go to Lindon, that Elrond didn't trust the stranger who came, to show how Anatar won the trust of the elves and Aragorn for many years, how they first tried to create the so-called small rings, and only then 16 great ones. And the rings of the elves were forged last, by the way, to tell and show that the 7 rings that will be given to the dwarves influence their owners differently than people. Come up with some small episode, even with regards to this point, which will better help reveal the dwarves and their nature, and at this pace, the series would move according to the source. Yes, you don't need to stretch everything for 400 years, because Sauron came in the guise of Anatar in 1200 of the Second Era, and Celebrimbor forged the rings of the elves in 1590 of the Second Era, and only then during the war between the elves and Sauron to introduce Numenor, which will help in the Battle of Lindon. By the way, the character of Elendil, if anyone doesn't know, was born in 3119 of the Second Era, that is after 1,500 years. Amazon took the events of 1500 years and stuffed them into one season, and it's so bad in places that the hand itself wants to rewind the video. The events before and during the Forging of Rings could have been filmed without any difficulty for 3 seasons, for 10 episodes each, but it turns out the entire first season was for 9 hours plus. What did they tell us as a result? Where is that subtle game of Sauron? What is his skill that made him the most dangerous in Middle-earth for many thousands of years? Yes, in general, the plan of Sauron, according to the script of the series, was based on what? How did he know that Galadriel would pursue Sauron for many years? How did he know that Gil-galad would send Galadriel to the lands of Valinor? Why did he decide that Galadriel would change her mind at the very end to go to the land of the Valar? If they hadn't crossed that sea, what would Sauron have planned to do then? It turns out that the second most powerful antagonist in the world of Tolkien, after Melkor, relied on a simple chance and not on a prudent design and a century-old complex game, but simply on a chance. Well, if you like this option, then I am sincerely happy for you. Then, unlike me, you enjoyed watching. Let's talk about Galadriel's relationship with Sauron. If it seems to you that the reception of reverse psychology that was between Sauron and Galadriel in the series is a good plot move, they say he deliberately provoked her so that she would call him to follow her, so that later on he would have a good moment in Aragorn and in 5 minutes enter the trust of Celebrimbor. Then, do you really think so? And also another moment, didn't Galadriel herself recognize in him the King of the South? If their lineage was interrupted so long ago, where did the symbols and signs of that kind come from? Well, let's say magic, but how does Galadriel know about them? After all, in the 8th series, it was made clear that her knowledge, to put it mildly, was not complete. But how did she recognize the symbol on the neck of Halbrand, of kind of people who had been interrupted for like 1,000 years? The very dialogues between Sauron and Galadriel in Aragorn and in Galadriel's head would have been nothing if Tolkien had not written 100 pages during his life, which explains why the version of the series is at least noticeably inferior to the original source and at most impossible.
I am more powerful than the Chancellor. I can overthrow him. And together you and I can rule the galaxy. Make things the way we want them to be.
I don't believe what I'm hearing. Obi-Wan was right. You've changed.
Although I confess, since I refused to believe until the end that Sauron was hiding under the guise of Halbrand, I was pleased to watch him. And Galadriel, by the way, after watching the 8th series, it became clear where the scene of confession of feelings between the two of them came from. But aside, it would even be interesting to see in the future the relationship between Halbrand, Galadriel and Celeborn, how they would develop. In the series, the essence of episodes 4, 5 and 7 is simply not clear to me. You can safely throw them away and watch only 1, 2, 3, 6 and 8. That is 3 hours just thrown into the rubbish. Again, I am not the one who requires compliance with the canon. If you are able to adapt it and rewrite it to make it better and throw out the unnecessary, well, or at least at the same level, then the example of Fight Club is welcome. From the bat, the 2006 film Aragorn comes to mind, the authors of which could not adapt the script, which is why the film had its time and failed at the box office. But by the way, flying on dragons is better there than in the Game of Thrones, not to mention the battle on the sky on dragons. I'm even willing to risk my health and tell you, what about the original Jackson films? Those who read the original are aware that most of the beginning of the book is simply not there. On the way to the village of Bree, the hobbits managed to meet hermit elves, Tom Bombadil, and even get captured. Or the character Denethor in the film, he's clearly shown from the negative side as a vain, stubborn one who sent his son to his death because of his grief that Boromir died, his eldest son and not Faramir. But in the original he was a very strong character, a real Númenórean in spirit, though not by blood, a powerful political leader and the first person since the time of the kings of Gondor who used the Palantir. And unlike Saruman, who fell under the spell of Sauron, the ordinary man Denethor didn't succumb to the will of the Dark Lord. You knew about this, but nevertheless, his Lord of the Rings, 20 years after the release of the third part, remains an unattainable level to this day. From the series, you could do something like that with the money you had. You could hire specialists at the level of Fionor. But unfortunately, it is not like the movie. As a result, first, personally, I still have questions about what the money was spent on. The moments where there are more than 10 people in the frame can be counted on the fingers. Compare the level of extras, at least here and here. How vivid and natural the first looks, and how staged the second is. I won't even mention the battle scenes at Helm's Deep or Minas Tirith. Well, or at least the Battle of the Fellowship of the Ring with the orcs in Khazad Dûm, or the Uruks at the end of the film The Fellowship of the Ring. All that Amazon can give out for $1 billion is barely live characters in the 6th episode. Second, the insane crumbledness and focus on anything but power rings throughout the series. Thirdly, unnecessary drama where it clearly superfluous. So which of you for a moment believed the possibility of the death of one of the heroes? Fourth, a very lazy staging and low atmosphere of the people of the south. In the amount of one village, there seem to be about 5 elves in all of Middle-earth. Well, plus those who were with Galadriel at the beginning of the series. Sixth, the motives why the people of the south hate the elves. And why did they team up with Morgoth in the past? They didn't explain to us that. Why do the Númenóreans dislike elves too? And that there is a huge difference between the Númenóreans and ordinary people. By the way, the first live for several hundred years and the second like you and me. Are you wondering why this happened? You may say, but in the next seasons it will be shown. What are you whining? And I will answer. The relationship between the Númenóreans and the elves are revealed in one phrase. The Númenóreans envied the elf for immortality, and this envy has become a shadow in their soul. There is also no explanation why things turned out so tragically with the people of the south. So this is definitely not enough for 9 hours. You don't need to write in comments. You criticize them, collect the money yourself and do as you want. Or you are not a screenwriter. What can you understand in this? I didn't work as a designer at the factory, but I can say which is better, Fiat or Ferrari. I didn't study to be a zoologist, but I can also distinguish a cat from a dog. I am not a chief either. However, I can distinguish a festive, delicious cake from cookies for 3 cents. The same goes for the script of a series. Well, that was my reasoning out loud. To be honest, I had a very strange feeling after watching episode 8. My imagination involuntarily drew a possible finale and what to expect in the second season. And again, it crashed into a different reality, leaving a bitter aftertaste from the thought, but everything could have worked out. But be that as it may, I thank you for your attention. I hope someone was interested in what I was talking about. I would appreciate your likes and subscriptions to the channel. In the meantime, I wish you all a good morning, afternoon, evening or night. See you later.